My name is Travis Ellington, and my project was on Starbucks in Australia. According to Taylor Clark, Starbucks' company was inspired by The Tale of Moby Dick, and the idea from the beginning was to capture the very essence of the sea and to bring in sailors and casual workers at their long day's work. Many people may associate Howard Schultz with Starbucks, but he was not the one who founded Starbucks. The founders were Gordon Boker, Jerry Baldwin, and Zeev Siegel, who sold Starbucks when they couldn't control the company's quality. Schultz actually, although he had been a part of Starbucks, left it to start his own coffee bar company after being impressed by the culture of it in Italy. His goal in the long run was to implement this culture into the United States. Here are some products and services that Starbucks offers. This was found on the Starbucks Corporation Market Line report. Here are some pictures of what Starbucks offers, straight from their website. This chart from the Starbucks annual report shows that Starbucks has had increasing revenues over the last 5 years. From the Hoover report, we see over the last 3 years, net profit has been increasing for Starbucks. In between 2017 and 2018, the increase was over 5%. This chart from the Starbucks annual report shows that Starbucks has been increasing the number of company-owned operated stores over the last 5 years. And according to the annual report, total net revenues increased 2.3 billion or 10% over fiscal year 27, and these revenues were primarily due to the 816 new net Starbucks stores. This would suggest that Starbucks' strategy of increasing revenues by opening new stores is leading to their growth. Competitors and market share. This shows that Starbucks has a 10% market share in the eating places and coffee and tea manufacturing industry. I took a list of competitors from Merchant Online and Market Line and created my own industry report off of that. Some of the challenges and difficulties that Starbucks deals with. Starbucks has to deal with product recalls, which according to the Market Line Starbucks Corporation report, recalls are becoming more common, and the cost to Starbucks is that this could cost them market share. Threats: increase in cost of raw materials. Although, according to the Market Line report, although prices are negotiated at a premium, these can swing up and down depending on demand and poor conditions for their suppliers. The cost of Starbucks is when their suppliers have poor conditions for harvest season, this could in turn hurt their sales and market share. Intense competition. Starbucks faces intense competition in the coffee industry, and one particular competitor, according to Starbucks 2018, is McDonald's, which has a global presence and strong brand recognition in most countries. It's a threat to Starbucks because Starbucks does not have the same recognition as McDonald's. Although, interestingly enough, Starbucks holds a small lead over McDonald's in the eating places industry. Compliance with government regulations. Regulations, as you well know, are a pain to conform to, and Starbucks is no exception. Starbucks is subject to regulations in its home country and countries in which it operates. Conforming to these can be very expensive, and you also never know when new regulations could come up. This shows some of the products that they sell in Australia, taken from the Starbucks AU website. Country overview. Australian culture, convenience. Australians are considered to be easygoing and carefree, but it does not extend to the consumer behavior. Australians do not like to be kept waiting, and high-quality customer service is paramount for Starbucks to succeed. Egalitarianism. This originates from Australians' mistreatment of Britain as a colony, and it's still important on their society today. They are basically, in terms, a band of brothers, so to speak. And a business can use this band of brothers complex to its advantage, but it must be careful not to overstep its bounds. Because an example of this would be if you're a male single driver riding in a cab, your driver may think you view him as a servant. Strongly advise that Starbucks learns about the norms of Australia before setting up shop. The language is probably the biggest barrier that Starbucks will face. Australians speak English, but they borrow spellings from US and Britain. An example of this is that they use the American form of labor, while Britain uses labour. But too many American spellings can leave a negative impact on Starbucks product. It would be highly recommended that Starbucks studies up on the different spellings. According to the Central Intelligence Agency, Australia is an open market economy with very little restrictions on goods and services. This means that Australia is a prime candidate for Starbucks to expand into. Another aspect that is attractive, according to the Central Intelligence Agency, Australia has abundant and diverse natural resources, which attracts foreign investment. This means that Starbucks should move quick to establish first mover advantages. One aspect that I think they should also consider is what's the history between America and Australia as trading? Well, according to Trade 2014, the United States is Australia's fifth largest merchandise export market and most important market for Australian services. Good trade relations between the US and Australia seem to suggest that it can only help Starbucks with their revenues and growth. Hofstade's scores show that America and Australia are very similar. Starting a business, the procedures. Australia is shown to be ranked number 7 in terms of how it is to start a business. They have 3 procedures, and the cost per capita appears to be about 0.65%. In America, and this differs from state to state, there are 6 procedures, and the cost per capita is 80%, and it's a little harder to start one up based on the ranking. The procedures for Australia. There are 3 procedures to follow as mentioned. The first one is to file ASAC 201 and pay a fee. Also, any appointed directors and shareholders must have consented. According to World Bank AU, Procedure 2 calls for you to register with the Australian Taxation Office. And if you make AUD $75,000, you must register for the goods and service tax. According to World Group AU, Procedure 3 calls for you to sign up for worker compensation insurance. This premium is based on the company's main business. Now in the U.S., for tax purposes, you have to file for a EIN. You have to collect state sales tax depending on what you sell. In addition, if you had to file for the state sales tax, you file quarterly. In Australia, aside from registering for a tax entity, you would only have to file for the goods and service tax if you made $75,000 in Australian dollars. There are no quarterly payments. In Australia, there is no unemployment insurance, but in the US, there is. Starbucks has been tracking the coffee they get from certain companies, such as Costa Rica, Colombia, and Rwanda. As Starbucks is tracking coffee beans in these countries, and with this initiative, Starbucks is looking to ensure fair trade. This may be in response to fluctuating prices due to supply and demand, product competitiveness, leveraging technology. According to the Starbucks MarketLine report, it says that in order to stay ahead of its competition, Starbucks is using a strategy of leveraging technology to build a robust distribution channel to stay ahead of its competition. The company sells to 4 channels: company operated stores, licensed stores, CPG, and food service operations. By leveraging technology, I feel Starbucks is offering convenience, and this is important in Australia because they have no patience for poor customer service. The image. Let's consider companies that are similar to Starbucks on the surface, but Starbucks has far better sales. Why is this? The answer, according to Clark T., is the image of the Starbucks experience, which I have been alluding to previously. Customers come to Starbucks not to partake in just the coffee, but to partake in the Italian coffeehouse lifestyle that Schwartz sought to bring to America. And this is why head-to-head Peet's would average 400,000 sales, but Starbucks would average in the 1 millions. This means that the advantage Starbucks image gives them is that they are giving their customers something that the competition can't see. And if you can't see it, how do you replicate it? Food and beverage industry. The food and beverage industry of North America, April 2019, says that the dynamic food and beverage sector continuously receives investment needed for growth and innovation. Given Starbucks' robust channels, continued investment can only help to keep their growth trend continuing, as shown in the MarketLine report. The Food and Beverage North America, April 2019, also says that in the U.S., the Food and Beverage Agency has a high level of research and development important for creating healthy products and obtaining a competitive advantage. Innovation is one of the driving forms of business, one of which Starbucks has shown in its ability to refine what the coffee experience means over time. As the Starbucks experience showed, and continued R&D in the industry will likely keep allowing Starbucks to do so. Some of the trends of the industry, according to the Food and Beverage Industry of North America 2019, U.S. per capita consumption of fluid milk has been way down. A cause of this for Starbucks would probably mean that they're going to have to import more than they used to. And another trend is consumers are looking for healthier alternatives now. This means that Starbucks needs to innovate or they could be losing market share. And this came from the NA6 website. This is showing the eatery market share of just this one industry. Starbucks seems to only have a 5% share.